It seems like only yesterday that the narrative was that emulation was completely legal, that it was settled in court, and that Nintendo couldn't do anything about pirates on Reddit and on other internet platforms. And yet, in the real world, we are constantly seeing these lawsuits continue all the time. So while emulation may technically be legal, there is no way to legally obtain any Nintendo files that can be played on said emulator. So essentially, distributing these files or attempting to downloading them, ripping them from your physical collection, that is all considered illegal. And we are seeing more and more instances of Nintendo cracking down on this behavior in courts stateside. And we are quickly reaching the point where Nintendo will be able to file lawsuits against anybody who illicitly plays on modified Nintendo hardware or pirated software. What we are witnessing now is the beginning of the end of the golden age of piracy, in which Nintendo cracks down all the loopholes. They get a hold of all of these people distributing their games. They'll be able to go to foreign countries and get people fined there. There simply isn't going to be an avenue of escape going forward. Traditionally, these people were reliant on the Wild West internet to distribute these Nintendo files unaccosted. But in this day and age, as the law begins to catch up with this very real problem, Nintendo, coupled with the US government, are indeed taking steps to prevent all forms of piracy. And that does include emulation of Nintendo hardware. It has been a consistent cope among the emulation community that Sony v. Bleem somehow allows pirates to distribute Nintendo software online when that clearly isn't the case. Sony v. Bleem specifically allows the use of emulators in the US, but it does not account for piracy, the method in which people need to get files for their emulators. And the cope has been always that they're getting these ROMs completely legally by buying the game and just ripping them from the disc. Not only is that stupid and makes no sense, like if you just owned a physical copy of the game, why wouldn't you just own the hardware as well? But it's also not true because all of these people are just downloading games off the internet all the time. They are pirates. And this has always been like the reality of the emulation community is that what they say they do is completely legal, but the reality of it is quite a bit different. Because if you're pirating Nintendo games, if you're telling people that you're playing these games legally, the reality is every game that you're playing legally on an emulator should be you should own that game and you should have it. And for a lot of these games that are not available in the US or never came out here or are just rare, obscure, like it isn't viable to believe that like people are just own these games and just have them lying around their house and they're just ripping it. Like it's just not that's just not plausible, really. And Nintendo knows that. Everyone who's interacting with these people know that they are like just downloading the ROM straight from the internet, which is illegal. And yeah, they are absolutely taking steps to prevent this from happening in the future, circumventing Sony v. Bleem with additional legislation that will further restrict what people will be allowed to do with their hardware and with their software. So we already have like, copyright encryption, which is, I believe, illegal to break, but you have like all these methods to prevent piracy, not only on PC, but on Switch itself, on other platforms. Like this is something that nobody wants anything to deal with. When Dolphin tried to release their emulator on Steam, Gabe Newell like pissed his pants and went to Nintendo asking if it was okay. And of course they said no because, emulators are scum and they're just primarily used for piracy. So, Dolphin, the most well-known GameCube emulator in existence and probably the most famous emulator there is. If that can't get an official release on Steam, that really shows you just how legal of a gray area emulators actually are, because they're being funded through donations, they're making money off this stuff, like people are like doing everything they can to like try and get back at Nintendo, to do everything they can to not have to buy their hardware. They're putting out like reverse engineered PC ports, which by the way would be completely pointless if emulators were legal. They're trying everything they can do other than simply just buying a Nintendo console and playing the games on that. Uh, because like to the PC community, like the best games they're ever gonna play are pirated copies of Nintendo games from the 90s. Like this is something I've been noticing for a long time, is that these guys hate Nintendo. They hate everything they do. They complain about them all the time, and yet they always seem to brag about pirating these old games, and playing them on their on their PCs. Which just goes to show you that, like, well, if the games are good and the hardware is good, like, why not just buy the new games? And like they always just cope and say that like the new games aren't as good as the old ones, and yet somehow, they're always there insisting that everything's going to come to PC eventually. It's just a giant cope, and always has been. It's just a method of for PC gamers to like pretend that Nintendo is not a competitive console platform. Like this has been like the thing, like for the longest time, is that people think Nintendo hardware is somehow holding back game development, which is obviously retarded when you look at like what PlayStation and Xbox are doing, because their hardware and their games have like their budgets have like spiraled out of control, and they don't make money, and they never have, especially for Xbox. But with Nintendo, they're a lot more reasonable. They're a lot they have a strict budget. They put out all this stuff. Like nothing they do is that unusual. Like they don't go over budget, is what I'm saying. Like, and the games are better. Like you don't need like cutting edge hardware for video games. This is actually like one of Nintendo's core philosophies, and something that like Yamauchi himself established, is that like the how the games look and like the stories don't matter, because these are games, and you're supposed to engage with games. And you know and that's something that like PC gamers just don't understand about anything. They think that upping, like spending like, I don't know, thousands of dollars on a new graphics card every year is somehow makes them like hardcore gamers. But like what are you going to play on that thing? Like what is coming out that justifies a new gaming PC every year, Like it just doesn't make any sense. And like the games they play are like garbage. Like, like the PC gamer I talk about all the time, Raging Golden Eagle, like, oh, I'm playing better games than Nintendo. I'm playing Girls Frontline 2 and Nikkei. It's like, what are you talking about? Like nobody knows what those are. Nobody cares. Like you play those games because you're an incel. Okay, that's the reality of like the PC Master Race. Like, oh man, I can install nude mods in Skyrim or Street Fighter 6. Like, oh man, instead of talking to a real girl, I get to see Chun-Li. Like, it's just like, come on. Like, this doesn't make the experience better. It's not something that really means anything. Like it's something that we do really need to call out, and really need to address, that this this mindset that like PC gaming is better is built on a mountain of lies. It's not just emulation. It's about like the hardware, how affordable it is, what games release on it, like how functional they are. Like PC gaming is a mess. And when it comes to like, that community, they really don't want to admit it. And I think this piracy thing is going to be the big like crack that really dismantles the whole PC gamer argument, because every single time a big new Nintendo game comes out, they're all like out there trying desperately to gaslight you into thinking that like those games are going to come to PC eventually. And it just doesn't happen. If it doesn't get an official release, they just try and pirate it. But like the pirated versions have all these graphical errors and all these issues. And these days, considering the Switch 2 versions of games, you can't even argue that the games on PC look and run better now. Like that's just the reality of it. Like, and going forward, we as Nintendo fans really do need to do more to degrade the piracy community. Like we need to support Nintendo when it comes to these kind of lawsuits because this is something that has been actively impacting the community for years. Because so many times Nintendo releases a game and, like re-releases the game. Like we're seeing this now with Super Mario Galaxy actually. They re-release the game, they put more effort into it, they redo visuals, they put real work into it, right? They add more content, they do whatever, and then you just have PC pirates coming in and saying that, like, oh, I'm just going to emulate that, every single time. And, even now, the Switch 2 at this stage is not emulatable. You can't even pirate games on Switch 2. Like, even now, you're seeing people like throw money into like people who claim that they're producing Switch 2 emulators. Uh, this might be the last generation where this happens before all the legal loopholes close and Nintendo's able to go after people for asking for money to develop emulators for existing hardware that's still on the market. Because they already took down Ryujinx, they took down Yuzu, and people love to say that that was due to like legal law warfare and like Nintendo didn't really have a case, but the reality is there was nothing those people could have done to defend themselves. Like, and we're at the point where like the Hydra theory is being debunked. More and more emulators are getting taken down all the time. Websites are getting taken down. Redditors are getting fined. Like, Nintendo is really taking down all these people, and there's just nothing you can do to stop it.